Good afternoon, my name is Samir Payne Workman, and I'll be talking about racial discrimination against Asian Americans. My first question is, to what extent has American society affected racial discrimination against Asian Americans in the past 100 years? The harassment of the Asian American community face and have faced can be identified with the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, xenophobic harassment over the years, and the Japanese internment camps of World War II. What is racial discrimination? Racial discrimination is any discrimination against an individual based on their skin color or race, ethnic origin. COVID-19's impact on the Asian American community. In 2019, when the COVID-19 pandemic first started, a lot of people wanted a finger to point to for the blame of the pandemic. And since the pandemic originated in China, a lot of people blamed the Chinese or Asian community as a whole. And it soon came into the Asian American community. In the visual, it asks 4 in 10 Americans say it is more common for people to express racist views on people who are Asian than before COVID-19. In the visual, it asks Asian, Blacks, White, and Hispanics if, from the pandemic, if discrimination or harassment increased or less common or about as common. Majority of people did say it is about as common, with less of it being less common. Well, a great increase of more common between people seeing racism between the Asian, Black, White, Hispanic towards the Asian community. Many people like Jeremy Lin, a professional basketball player for the Golden State Warriors, claim he has also experienced discrimination, such as in the G League, Jeremy Lin was called the coronavirus by another basketball player. He was called this for just being Asian. Xenophobic actions. May 6, 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act prohibited all Chinese immigrants, from entering the United States. The act itself painted a picture that most Asians or Chinese were criminals. In the visual, it is a political cartoon where on the side it goes, notice, communist, annihilate, socialist, Fenian, hoodlum, welcome, and at the bottom it says, no minutes to Chinaman. During this time, many names were created to discriminate against Asian Americans, such as the terms chink and goong. Internment camps. After Pearl Harbor and Japanese attacked us, Order 9066 was executed, where the government claimed this was going to be a safety protocol to keep the Americans safe. What happened was they had grounded up all the Japanese descendants who have been here long before then and forced them into these internment camps. The internment camp is a confidential or prison of war, enemy aliens, or political prisoners holding facility. In 1945, once the internment camps were free and the Asian Americans were released, society had grown hatred toward them, as media had painted them as villains for what the Japanese actually had done in the Pearl Harbor attack. My solution to this problem, though, is the younger generation. If we were to take the younger generation and make sure they understood that not to base someone on their race, where they came from, we can stop there very young. As from WebMD, as soon as 16 months, they were able to understand partial sentences and start to understand what is yes and what is no. How it can fail. When they get older, social media can play a major impact due to the fact that social media has such a big impact on the youth. In 2018, Pew Research Center surveyed over 10,000 13 to 17-year-olds and found that 45% were online, and almost consistently 97% of those use social media platforms. And below, it's negative impacts of social media, where it's just fake profiling, fake relationships, spread of rumors, addiction to social media, anxiety and depression, cyberbullying, and cultural aggression. Any questions?
2 questions I have for you. First up, how valid and reliable were the sources that you used, and then how do you know they were?
So, majority of the sources being for the COVID and internment camps, they were mainly journalists asking people who experienced themselves. So it's a first person source, a primary source, I'm sorry. So they're just telling about my experience, their experience, and I use that to benefit my research question.
All right, and what advice would you have for other researchers who consider this topic in the future?
Some advice, I would try to go in different lenses for one, just because one lens kind of keeps everything together, it doesn't really like separate them, so it kind of sounds repetitive. Because for social, I mean, you're just kind of going over how social media impacted it, how people feel about it, but I also went like the government, how the Chinese Exclusion Act kind of banned the whole Chinaman as a whole.